I'm starting in Claude connected to a CQL Builder MCP server. And this setup does something we've all wished existed, lets a generative model write CQL within guardrails. So here I'll prompt it something like use MCP server CQL Builder. And Claude uses structured MCP interactions. The available functions here are generate CQL, validate CQL, and push to FHIR. So I would like to create a CQL measure based on the latest AMA guidelines for breast cancer screenings. So it does the research on the latest, what is the latest AMA guideline from US Preventative Task Force. And once it has the guidelines, it is able to use the CQL MCP server to create the structured CQL prompt. So we have what is the purpose, measure type and scoring type, what is the target population, and a problem statement. As you can see, it also retrieves the following value sets that are applicable to this particular measure based on the guidelines. And the value sets are identified using value set authority center on the National Library of Medicine that is automatically pulled in by the MCP server. So now we see it's kind of generated the CQL measure based on the USPT STF 2024 breast cancer screening guidelines. And we can see the CQL that's being generated here. Based on those guidelines. And it's summarized by the MCP service. So we can see this is the CQL measure that it's created. And there's the final CQL code. So now I'm going to ask it to push to my Plum FHIR server. And here's my ID and secret. And it's retrieving the CQL library. So there it is. Now it's been deployed. And we can view this in MedPlum. So we can either execute evaluate measure, we can create test patients, or we can add this measure to quality reporting. We're actually going to go ahead and we're going to use the CQL to SQL converter now to convert it to SQL. And now we're going to transform the CQL that we generated to SQL using the CQL to SQL converter MCP tool. And as you can see, it will download the CQL library. It's going to validate it and then create a CQL to SQL. So it goes through a series of checks so that it can convert properly the defined statements from the CQL into CTEs and SQL, and then also generate the applicable views on the FHIR resources that are needed. So as you can see, this is the generated CQL SQL query. This is the resource views. So now I can execute this on Databricks, or I can convert to another dialect. Let me show you what it looks like when a full CQL measure goes from authoring, validation, SQL generation, and then execution in Databricks all in a single pipeline. The goal is simple: to make CQL not just the documentation, but executable analytics that runs everywhere SQL can run. So here's our SQL measure, standard logic pattern, and I'm going to load the SQL by connecting to the FHIR server. We're going to go ahead and select the CQL library and measure. We're going to connect to the terminology services to pull in the value sets. Then we're going to go ahead and ingest this data to Databricks. We're going to connect to create view definitions based on all of the FHIR resources and the measure itself. And we're going to go ahead and convert CQL to SQL. Then we're going to review and approve the SQL. We're going to approve the contract and the quality of the data. We're going to go ahead and execute and generate the measure report in Databricks. And we're going to go ahead and write back the measure reports to the FHIR server. And we're going to review the statistics. So this kind of presents all of the steps needed to execute is a standards aligned analytics stack for FHIR. CQL defines the logic, SQL executes the logic, and the warehouse brings the scale. I'm not going to go back and dive into the converter, CQL to SQL itself. So the step where we converted it to SQL, we can see the process by clicking on the Start Demo. And we have CQL presented here and SQL output here. So we can see the generated SQL query and the same measure report that's generated. So the output of both the CQL and the SQL remains the same, which is the standardized measure report. And we can tell what the process is for generating the SQL by looking at the transformation pipeline, which parses the CQL source code, analyzes the structure, and then generates base FHIR views and converts defines to CTEs. The schemas that we have are generated based on FHIR, and you can see it automatically assigns the right constraints while at the same time flattening the FHIR structure. In addition, we can see that there are different functions that convert from CQL to SQL. So there's a whole document structure here that everyone can go and explore. In addition to this being a project in draft mode,